Welcome commissioners, staff, petitioners, and citizens to the June 14th Mishawaka Planning Commission meeting. Some introductions. We have Ken Prince, our executive director for the cities, in the back. To my left, we have Derek Spear, our city planner. And to his left, we have David Bent, our legal counsel. To my right, we have Carrie Myers, our administrative planner. Shad Annis, our associate planner, and in between we have Krista Hill, our senior planner. Carrie Myers, would you please call the roll?
Chris Jamrose. Here. Murray Wynn.
Here.
Woody Emmons.
Here.
Chris Nabalski. Sam Cressy.
Here.
Nick Triola. Chris Torty.
Here.
Dale Freeman.
Here.
Kathleen White Gaddett.
Here.
Thank you. Rules of procedure are up on the board to my left. And I'll go through those. A couple of comments before as we do all of our speaking at the podium, so it could be on the record. When you do approach the podium, please say your name and address so Carrie Myers can take that down in her notes. But we'll first hear a presentation by the petitioner. And for each item, we'll ask those participating in the room to speak first, followed by those participating online. There will be some online people today, so have a little bit of patience with that, please. Then we'll have those who wish to speak in favor of the request come up. And then after that, those who wish to speak against the request. If you don't know whether you're speaking for or against, or you have questions and you don't know when to ask them, I would suggest asking those questions at the speak against the request. Then what we'll do is we'll take all of the questions that come up, we'll accumulate them, and then we'll have a right of rebuttal by the petitioner where they can specifically answer all of those questions that come up. Then I'll close the public hearing. Once I do close the public hearing, the only discussion that's had is with the commissioners and staff after that. And then we'll have a commission discussion and then a commission vote. Okay, the previous minutes were distributed. Were there any corrections or additions to the minutes that anybody saw, any of the commissioners? Nope. All those in favor of approving for the previous minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, those previous minutes are approved. Are there any conflict of interest on any of the items in the agenda tonight by the commissioners?
Mr. President, I have a conflict of interest with petition 22-05.
22-05 Sam Cressy, and that is noted. Any other conflicts of interest? Hearing none, that brings us to the first item on the agenda, which is a public hearing petition 22-03, a petition submitted by Evan Forsland requesting to rezone 1816 West 6th Street from I-1 Light Industrial District to R1 Single Family Residential District. This was continued from the May 10th meeting where we had the presenter was a no-show. Is there somebody here to present on petition 22-03?
Yep.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Name and address and tell us what you want to do.
Evan Forsland in 1816 West 6th Street. I bought this property at the beginning of March, and my plans are to fix it up and either use it as a rental or resell it. And I've been talking with the city and Mishawaka Utilities since I've owned it to come up with a game plan on what needs to happen. I talked to code enforcement and I met them over there the second week of March, and we have a list of about 4 pages of repairs on the property. And I'm planning on working with them through the whole way, and they're gonna re-inspect everything. This will be about my 5th property in Mishawaka that I've redone in the past about 2 years. So it's not the first house I've attempted to fix up. So I'm open to be cooperative in any way. I'm not trying to cause any trouble rezoning. Just, it's a house that was constructed as a house, and I'm just trying to get back to residential.
Have you started any of the renovations yet?
I've started cleaning the house out.
Okay.
And a couple of the pictures in right here, that's my truck and a couple of my guys that work for me. So if you're wondering what those vehicles were. Because there was homeless people living in it before I purchased it. And they've also came back since I've purchased. The city is not letting me turn the utilities on until it is zoned residential. They will allow me to turn it on at the current zone, but it's not industrial utilities. So they're not letting me turn it on.
In the previous houses that you've done, how many were residential, or how many were rentals versus outright sales?
In Mishawaka, there are outright sales, all 5 of them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Forsland. Any other questions from?
Evan, did
Commissioner?
you know the zoning when you bought it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Why are you interested in buying a building that's basically in an industrial area or commercial area? And that,
There's,
you're sandwiched right next to the railroad tracks and
Yeah.
commercial and that. And why would you want to have a residential zoning for a house that's in a industrial and commercial area?
yeah. So I did a little bit of research before I bought the house. And this isn't the only house on 6th Street that is up against an industrial building. And all the others are occupied residentially. So for the price that I could get the property, I figured I could go through this work to get it rezoned. Because I noticed the other properties are residential, and I was hoping to get this one
Well, one
residential as
thing,
well.
I'm against spot zoning, and that's what you're doing.
Do I?
Spot zoning.
I'm not familiar with that.
Well, that means you're taking a house or a building that's zoned industrial or commercial,
Yeah,
and taking a residential home that is zoned right now, I-1, and turn it into residential, sandwiched in between commercial and industrial. The city
Okay.
doesn't want that. I don't want that. I don't
Okay.
see that. And
And-
you're gonna turn it into a rental, and then I don't know what we're gonna have. So I'm totally against it.
yeah.
I
Well,
don't think it's a good thing for you. I don't think it's a good thing for the city.
And
Yeah.
I understand this property has had issues in the past.
A
And
lot of issues.
yeah, and
And
I'm not the person.
And I
that
was
caused
surprised
these issues.
that you got a full confirmation from the planning commission to approve it. I don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, it's close to the percentage of residential homes that we sent letters out to for the rezoning was way far beyond what industrial is in that area. So in my opinion, there's more residential in that area than there is industrial.
There is across the street, but if you
Yeah.
go towards the railroad tracks, between Sixth Street and the railroad track, that's not true.
Yeah,
I grew up in that area, so I know that area.
Mm-hmm.
And that. And to me, the best thing to do would be tear it down and let it be industrial, not sandwiched in between one house right next door. In fact, the walkway in between the building and that house is very, very limited. And that.
Yeah.
And we've had nothing but trouble with that thing. And nothing against you,
yeah,
but if you take that, if we rezone that residential and you rent it out, have no idea the problem we're gonna have. And I just don't think it's fit. I think we have a customer in that building next door to you that's doing a great job. Before that, we had a lot of problems for 12 years. Now, we don't have a bit of problem with that company that's in there, zone industrial.
Okay.
And I think we need to keep it that way. When we have a good neighbor, we need to keep it.
okay.
So
It's,
I am not in favor of
Okay.
rezoning that from industrial to residential.
okay. And it was constructed as a residential structure.
Right, but it's zoned right now I-1,
Yeah,
and it can't be used as a residential home.
why can't it exactly?
Not unless it's rezoned.
Yeah,
You can't have a single-family home that is
there's,
I-1.
yeah. There's other houses on that street, on 6th Street along the tracks that are up against industrial buildings.
But there's far more industrial and commercial buildings along Sixth Street behind the tracks than there
Yeah,
are
there's a
residential.
mix of them, yeah.
Just
Okay.
wanted to point it out that
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of your petition.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions for Mr. Forsland from the?
I'd like to
commission?
know what was the house being used as before? Was it just
It's-
vacant? Was it just in there
it's-
vacant for years or?
From my understanding, it's been vacant for several years due to the zoning. There's no current, it's zoned industrial, that's not an industrial building. No business can run out of that building. So if it, as long as it's, in my opinion, as long as it's zoned industrial, there's no use for that building.
I've heard it's gonna be torn down if it was
Yeah.
in that. But, Karen, that house was, people were living in it that ran the business of Pipers beforehand. And it was nothing but problems for the city and for the neighbors prior to that building being sold. True.
I didn't have very limited knowledge before March of this property.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Forsland from the commissioners? Nope, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody else in the chamber room or online wishing to speak in favor of petition 22-03? Hearing none, is there anybody in the chamber room wishing to speak against petition 22-03? Several, okay, one at a time. Come on up.
Jack Neighbor, I live across from the house that they want, and I am against it 100%. We spend a lot of time around there cleaning up yards, and the neighborhood is looking good now. Before, that place across the street was a slum area. It still looks like a slum area. As far as I'm concerned, they've done nothing to improve it, except tear the inside out. So I see no purpose in it. It's condemned, leave it condemned, tear it down. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Next. Yep, you can get together. Just give both your names and addresses clearly to Carrie Myers, please.
So, okay, I'm Grigor Petkov, and this is,
1802 West 6th
yeah,
Street.
1802 West 6th Street. And this is Jason.
Jason Van de Zandy, 1802 West 6th Street.
I'm sorry, repeat that again, your last name, please, Jason, I missed that.
Van de Zandy, this is going to be a great one. V like in Victor, A-N-D-E. Z like in zebra, A-N-D-E.
That's funny, she didn't ask.
It's kind of
me
like being
about
in
this,
high
so
school again, but different.
Anders Andy. I like it.
So we are 100% against this. We have a lot of photographs of this. We have a lot of a situation with this house.
Well, nothing against the gentleman that's
Nothing
trying to
against Evan
rezone
at
it.
all. We have zero issue with him. It is with the property itself.
So he's using other examples as, you know, that they are in industrial, they were rezoned. We did the research on this. This was never zoned residential. So this was an office building that was built as an office for the.
It's
what
been
is
an
it, for the
office for
factory.
several construction companies. If you guys look back at the records, you will see that it was used as an office through the 70s, 80s, and 90s for construction companies. Yes, I know it was built prior to that. In all honesty, the building probably was a residence at one point, but it's always been one property that was industrial.
And always went together with the.
And always
1802.
went together
Yeah.
with the 1802. Somehow it got split up. We tried to purchase it. It wasn't allowed. Evan wound up with it. Nothing against him at all, but there is no reason to have a residence that close. For one, the overhang of his property overhangs onto my property. For two, the water comes off of that house right into the side of my building.
And we have some
For
photos
three,
of the site.
We have photos of the site that should probably be shown.
Yeah, can we do
We
that?
can show that, we can
It's
show
up to you
things.
guys
Yeah.
if you want to do this.
Because
or not.
we try to clean it and we can't, like, we boarded it up so we can't even access that site, that narrow.
There again, nothing against Evan, but it was boarded up, so we could not get to it.
So we can't do any maintenance on our building
Because
because
of
it's,
this.
and it's what, it's like 2 feet away from that house.
32 inches if you want to get real.
And again, this sounds bad, nothing against him, but there was some work done on the house. More than just cleaning up.
We're not out to get him, we just don't want that next to us, plus not knowing what we're gonna get running the place or buying it, because it's never gonna go for real money, so you're gonna wind up with lower class in there.
Yep.
We do not want that next to a building that we've put this kind of money into and a business that we've put this kind of effort into.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Petkov and Vander Zandi? Questions?
Well, my question is, if he doesn't get the approval for the residential zoning, what is going to happen to this building?
Well, we don't know, we don't own it.
We have a thought on that, but
Yeah, we have ideas what we would have done if we had it, but
we actually
don't.
had a signed offer from the original owner of this, and she tore it up and then resold it for less money.
Yeah.
So your intent is to, if you can get the property to tear it down,
It's going
And-
down.
pardon?
It's
The
gonna go
intent
down.
is to, yeah,
It's
the
going
intent is
down.
to tear it down.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. You want to hold on to those? Okay, perfect.
What we're doing is accumulating these questions. Nope, yeah, at the end. I'm going to accumulate all the questions, and we'll roll through all of them so you can hit them all. So is there anybody else in the chamber wishing to speak against petition 22-03? Is there anybody online wishing to speak against petition 22-03? That brings us to the petitioner's right of rebuttal. So Mr. Forsland, come on up, and you can feel free to direct your answers to all the questions that were brought up,
Okay.
and we can go over those.
Okay. The picture of the board, we put that up because people were still getting into the house. And they were breaking in the house and they stole some of my tools. And in my eyes, this property has been an issue for so long because there's no use for it as an industrial building. If you guys walk through the building right now, yes, it's in rough shape, but that's one of the easiest houses to fix up I've bought in a while. This house across the street on Cedar, I'm putting close to $80,000 into that building to fix it up. That's gonna be about half to get that where it needs to be.
Can you address the overhang question and the water drainage that was
Oh.
brought up by Mr. Petkov and Vander
Well,
Zandi?
there's probably not functioning gutters. If there's gutters installed, you can move the water out in the yard or in the front yard. Right now, the water's probably just going down the side of the roof with no gutters. So that would be a pretty simple fix. And I'm willing to work with you guys. I've never done anything to hurt anyone. If you look at the other properties I've done, I can.
Shh, hold. Why don't you finish your rebuttal
Okay.
of
Well-
any other items that you'd like?
If, in my eyes, if this stays industrial, I don't see how it's gonna go the way anyone wants it to. Because
Okay, can you elaborate on that and give,
well, it's just, like I said, it's an industrial building. Or it's industrial, but it's a house. It's probably been an issue for so many years because it's not zoned correctly. We have zonings for particular types of buildings for a reason. So,
right, and this one currently is zoned I-1.
there's nothing industrial about the building.
Got it.
It was completely constructed as a residential house.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Oh, yep, question. Come on back up.
You're right. It's a house,
Yeah.
but the owner of the building, commercial building that is zoned I-1,
Yeah.
like to tear it down so they have an entrance into their building, office building for their employees. It's not gonna be a house. It's not gonna be residential. It's not gonna be livable. It's gonna be a structure that's torn down and have an entryway into a commercial or industrial building,
Okay.
you know.
Thank you.
And, okay.
Mr. Prince?
I should just sit up here because I can't keep my mouth shut. Anyway, Mr. President, members of the commission, Ken Prince. The reason I wanted to come up and speak is because the question was brought up regarding how can it not be used as residential, and I just want to elaborate on what's identified in the staff report regarding the non-conforming nature of the property. So if you own a single-family house and you're living along the tracks and it's zoned I-1, the industrial zoning used to permit single-family residential, and it was changed numerous decades ago not to permit to carry on that perpetual use. And I think what's different about this property is if I live on the railroad tracks and I own a single-family residential property, I can continue to live in it. What's different here, it was neglected for multiple years where the utilities were turned off, where it has lost its non-conforming status. That is why it can't be occupied at this point, and that's why it requires rezoning before it can be reinvested in. I would also remind the commission, you already know this, but it has nothing to do with one property owner versus the other property owner. We don't want to get involved in any property disputes. It's only about the zoning of the property that you're considering. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but the only action before you this evening is should this be zoned R1 single-family residential, or should it remain I1 light industrial? That's the only choice or decision that you are advising the council on this evening.
Right, and to that nature, is there questions for Mr. Prince for clarification on any of this?
Nope. My only, and this has nothing to do with it either, but it is so close to that building. But can't do anything about that, so.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Okay, so do we feel like that we answered the questions from his rebuttal properly? Do you feel like you have all the answers that you need? You can come up to the podium and if there's a point that you think he missed, let us know. Name and address, please.
Okay. My name is Elizabeth Miller, and I'm at 1802 West 6th Street. I just have a scenario for you, okay? So if you do a residence there, and me as a mother, I would not want my kids that close to a manufacturing, not knowing what kind of chemicals are used there, what kind of things are, being made there, whatnot, and then what is, the close to that train track. Also, how am I supposed to fence in my yard when it's that close to a commercial building? That's not really possible because of it's too close. Then you also have, if you made it to residential, they're not gonna be there that long because that train is right there. If you have children, they're not gonna sleep. I mean, that's just my scenario as a mother.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, at this time, we're going to close the public hearing, and we're going to leave it to discussion amongst the commissioners, the staff, and any further questions that we have between all of us. Woody, can you go over why you're against that being an R1? You live in the neighborhood, you know the neighborhood.
I don't live in the neighborhood now. I grew up in that neighborhood on Sixth Street.
But you know what the building is like now,
Right.
and you know that Mr. Forsland owns it
Well-
as an I.
Yeah, well, back when I was a kid, that was Wagner Steel in that building. And they used that house as an office for Wagner Steel for many, many years. And when Wagner Steel closed, it's been tossed back and forth to different businesses. And that, lately, that house has been nothing but a deterrent in that neighborhood. We've had people come and go, we've had a lot of problems with that house. It's not suitable for, as close as it is to that business. And I think we have a tenant now in that building that used to be Wagner Steel that is a good neighbor, not only to the people on the north side of the street, but also on the south side of the street. All those neighbors are 100% for that business versus what it was before when it was Piper's. We had a lot of problems with Piper. We got that taken care of, and we got a good tenant in there. And then what they want to do is they want to expand so that make it more feasible for their business to have their employees come in, keep off-street parking, which they're doing, into the bullpen, and the neighbors love that. They were tired of fighting cars and trucks and cars that were dilapidated in that. So if we deny this petition, then probably that company will be able to buy that house, tear it down, and use it as their facility, as an entrance into their business. That is the best use for it,
But
not
as of-
for
but as
another
of Right
house.
now, they don't own it.
No, they don't own it. They're willing to purchase it. And as the business owners said, that they had offered to buy it for way more than what the people sold it for. And I think it was a grudge there. And I think that we're doing the neighbors a disservice by letting it be residential and then turning it into a rental. We have enough rentals in the area that we don't need any more. And you have a business that wants to grow and wants to maintain the integrity of the area. And you've got the neighbors across the street and down the street that are in favor of basically tearing it down. And
But if we
Good.
vote no and he keeps it, that everything stays the same.
well, yeah, but he can't build, he can't do anything.
Yeah,
So
but all the
maybe,
problems-
and if they're willing to pay a good price, more than what he paid for the house, he's ahead. I'm just looking at the thing, why would you want a residential crammed up next to a commercial building or an industrial building? You've got no yard, you can't really get in between the buildings to do anything. And that, so I just don't think that a residential home fits there right now. I don't think so.
Other questions amongst the staff? Any other comments? What are we thinking?
So I have mixed feelings, because the thing that makes me against it is how close it is to that building. It is so close to that building. But I also know that Evan does a very good job with his properties. I've seen his properties before. So we can't judge what happened before he bought it. If it was in a different spot, not so close to that building, I would be definitely for turning it residential. So I'm actually mixed. I have mixed feelings.
I think ideally I'd like to see the building raised and it used for its intent as an industrial property. My concern is if we vote against it and that doesn't happen, that this continues to attract, as you said, Chris, attract issues long-term and cause more problems for the neighborhood. So I'm mixed as well, but that's my main concern. Ideally, I would like to see this continued as industrial. I agree, Evan, that it can't be used as industrial as it stands, but I think the solution to that problem is that it's raised and is given an opportunity to do something else.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, then I will call for a motion on petition 22-03 from the commissioners.
I make a motion that we deny petition number 22-3.
Second.
The motion to deny, we have a first and a second. Carrie, would you please call for the vote on denial?
Chris Jamrose?
No.
Murray Nguyen?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes,
Dale Freeman?
Yes.
Kathleen White Gaddich?
and the denial went through.
My vote doesn't really matter, but, yes.
I'm sorry, I said that before you.
That's okay,
before
because
you
I was still thinking. I was like, well, my vote doesn't really matter. so-
Thought I heard something. Okay, great discussion. Thank you all for that on petition 22-03. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, petition 22-04. A petition submitted by Michael A. Young requesting to rezone 1023 West 6th Street from C1 General Commercial District to R2 Family Residential District. Hi.
Hey, nice to meet you. Michael Young, 1023 West 6th Street here in Mishawaka. So as you can see, we've got a property there that had mixed use. It's currently zoned commercial. My mom and I bought this property together when I moved back to Indiana after serving in the military and lived in Los Angeles for a couple years, entering the professional work world. And we converted it into a beauty shop for her to work out of. And it's been a successful beauty shop since that point in time. And she lived in the house that adjoined to it. With COVID and her being 75 years old and having a stroke and COPD, she's retired from the beauty shop world. And I happen to live in New Jersey now for work, and we decided to convert the beauty shop, really just take the beauty shop equipment out of it and just use it, furnish it inside. Sets up really nice as a living space. So, sad to see the beauty shop go. There are a lot of beauty shops in that corridor. So we had a lot of fun with it over the years. And from the perspective of resale, et cetera, my mom and her husband will live there through the rest of their years. They're alive, which hopefully will be, 20 or 30 more years. But I would like to use the front part of it to as a place to stay when I come in town, or for family, relatives, gatherings, et cetera. So it will no longer be a commercial use. And I think it makes more sense to zone it residential. When that time comes to sell the property or whatever we end up doing, I don't know if anybody has taken out a commercial loan. I know when I was 26 and I bought the property, it was really difficult to get a commercial loan. So I couldn't have imagined how difficult it was. So I think for resale and everything else that we've got going on, I think it'd be better use. And there was a recommendation through this process to zone it as R2, because it still is, even though it's under one roof, it still sets up kind of as two properties, and that's our situation.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Young? Woody?
Yeah, looking at the building, and I'm familiar with it because it's in my district.
Yeah.
And you're gonna make it multifamily or two residential, basically, right?
It would have that potential or ability. I mean, right now, there's just a door between the two. There's no
Yeah.
security or bolt or anything
Is
like
it
that.
your intention to have one entrance facing Sixth Street and then the other one on Cleveland Street?
Yeah, well, you can see there is this entrance, that's my mom's house. That's about a 900 square foot house. And then there's a door right there on Sixth Street that also goes into a hallway. And
Yeah.
then there is also the door, so that door right there is another entrance. It was like a service entrance. And then there is an entranceway on Sixth Street as well. It's confusing as all get out when people deliver, because it almost like should be Cleveland Street, because
Yeah.
that's where the mail
Well, that
was
was a beauty
delivered.
shop there for a long time.
Yeah, it was a beauty shop for since 1993. So now this is a door that will remain there as well. So you've got an entrance got two entrances into what would be the front apartment on Sixth Street, and you have one entrance on Cleveland Street for the
Okay.
house.
Okay. And do you intend to put a lot of remodeling?
No,
No, you're just gonna just kind of change it around
yeah,
and that to where you have two private entrances, right?
that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Young?
Yeah.
Sam?
Do you intend to rent out the second unit or Airbnb it, anything like that, or?
No, I think we've got, enough family and all that. We have kids that live my kids live in Bloomington, and have a daughter at Indiana State. We have quite a few family that come in town for different things, so there really is no goal of renting it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
Oop,
question.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Twice I did that to you. Sheesh. So sorry.
Why are you looking to rezone R2 to family residential? instead of just residential?
I had originally put in the request for just an R1. I really didn't even know what R2 was. And just through going through this process, it was suggested to do it as R2. And I had to kind of figure out what that even meant. And I was open to it. It really didn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to my mom. Like I said, I think the big hangup was there was a kitchen when it was there's two kitchens. So, and there's a doorway between the two, so it kind of set up to be R2. I'm pretty open to whatever that ends up being, but I think the real value or benefit would be whenever it comes to resell, it'd be a lot easier to sell and it would set up great as a mother-in-law suite or whatever you would want it to, or if you wanted to make it under one roof and have it be a 3-bedroom house, you could do that as well. So you have some options, but that's kind of what we're using it for, and I think that's what made the most sense. But I was open to R1 or R2.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Young? Woody?
I would like clarification from the planning department. If it goes to R2, does it have to be divided into two separate facilities?
It doesn't have to be. The way that we said that it should be R2 because what he's describing, it's two separate units basically. Whether or not he chooses to block that door between the two, that's up to him. But this would give him the ability to basically have two separate units. So that's why the R2 is required. You can't go to the R1 because the R1 is basically one unit, one single family residential unit. So this would basically establish it as two units. And we were concerned too about the parking. And if you look at some of the pictures, they have 4 spaces there. There's 2 in the garage and 2 in the front in the driveway. So because we do have 1.5 spaces per unit, so they do have enough parking for that for the 2 units. Because I know that's sometimes sensitive when we rezone stuff to a R2 district.
Yeah, in the busy beauty shop days, you could have 7 or 8 cars parked around the facility. So all that's done. So that's a lot easier, I think, on the neighborhood residents and all that stuff. And
So is it set up with 2 water systems and 2 electrical systems?
It's been an interesting journey, you know. First thing we did was put 2 different HVAC units in when we bought it. It has one hot water boiler, which was interesting for the beauty shop because like my stepdad couldn't take a shower if they were cutting hair. So the answer is, I believe it's got 2 electric meters and 1 gas meter. I think there's 2 electric meters, 1 gas meter. I think that's the way it's set up. Sorry that I don't know all that. It's been years. My mom has really run the property, but you would have to probably put in if you wanted to separate it completely like that, you'd have to put in 2 gas meters. You probably have to put another hot water heater, which when the hot water heater goes out, I may put an extra one in there. We won't be there a ton, just on the holidays and probably a week or 2 in the summer, things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else in the chamber room wishing to speak in favor of petition 22-04? Is there anybody online wishing to speak in favor of 22-04? Hearing none, that moves to against. Anybody in the chamber or online wishing to speak against petition 22-04? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any discussion or additional information?
No additional information.
And no discussion, I'll take a motion on 22-04.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve petition number 2204 as presented by the petitioner.
Chief
Second.
Kathy White-Gavich. Carrie, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose?
Yes.
Murray Nguyen?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes.
Dale Freeman?
Yes.
Kathleen White-Gaddich?
Yes.
And petition 22-04 passes unanimously. This brings us to petition 22-05. I believe the presenter will be online. And it's a petition submitted by South Bend Indoor Soccer, Inc., requesting to amend the Cass Road East University Drive planned unit development to allow a climate-controlled self-storage facility within the existing building at 1435 University Drive Court, Granger. So somebody online. And in person. All right.
My name's Alex Gautreaux, Gautreaux. Director of Construction for Dot Real Estate. Our address is 1211 South Whitechapel Road, or South Whitechapel Boulevard, South Lake, Texas, 76092. We're trying to convert, we're gonna add another floor inside the building and convert it and to have about 83,000 square foot of climate-controlled self-storage. Hours of operations would be between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. would be allowed access, and then there will be access.
Hold on one second. Whoever's online, go ahead and please mute your phone until you're ready to speak. Thank you, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
And then the office would be open between 10 and 6 a.m. or 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. There's roughly about 20 trips a day, so it wouldn't be adding a ton more traffic than that's already going to the facility on a regular basis. And we would be mainly upgrading the inside, adding adding one access on the west side of the building, or the west, or I think it's the north elevation of the building, to allow 2 different accesses to the building. And then we would be adding some signage along the frontage of along the interstate as well. So it wouldn't be glowing into the parking lot. We would only be adding, so that we'd be maintaining the rest of the building and pretty much leaving the exterior of the building as it is. And we would also be updating the landscaping plan around the building as well, just to like spruce it up, not just to make it look cleaner.
Thank you. Is there any questions on this petition? Woody?
Sir.
Yes, when you say climate controlled, what are you planning to store there?
The facility will be an extra space storage facility. So it'll be a reed operator. It'll be roughly 615 units of mixed sizes, all the way from 5x5 to 10x30. So it'll be for public use. There will be no combustibles allowed inside the building. That's part of the lease terms as well.
Okay, so there'll be no automobile stored in there?
No, there will not be. You will not be able to get a vehicle
Recreational
inside the
vehicle.
building, and that is purely against the rules and the stipulations in our
Okay,
leases.
what about commercial stuff, commercial products and stuff like that? Is that,
That is against the rules as well. Anything that's flammable or combustible,
okay,
or hazardous materials, and
okay. Do you have a person there, like 8 to 5 or something
or
like that?
from 10 to 6 daily, there will be someone on Monday through Saturday. There will be someone checking in the building. There will be a management staff there as well.
And they closed on Sunday, or that they
The
come and go?
office facility will be closed, but there will be access on Sunday. We will have a camera system around the entire building, inside and outside, as well as,
Will it be fenced area, like
I
normal?
wasn't planning to fence any of it due to the not having to change the lot itself, because everything will be contained inside the building, and it'll be individual access. So you'll have your own unique number to gain access to the building. So only people that have a unit inside will have the ability to get in.
Okay, thank you.
And a condition to this is absolutely no storage outdoor. So,
Right, correct. This is all indoor, everything existing inside the building shell.
gotcha. Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room or online wishing to speak in favor of petition 22-05? Is there anybody in the chamber room or online wishing to speak against 22-05? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional information, letters, or discussion amongst the commissioners?
None.
Questions? None, then I'll take a motion on 22-05.
I move that we approve petition 22-05.
Murray,
Second.
Chief. Carrie, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Chamers,
Yes.
Murray Wynn,
Yes.
Woody Emmons,
Yes,
Chris Torty,
Yes.
Dale Freeman,
Yes.
Kathleen Whitegadich.
Yes.
Thank you, and that passes unanimously. Brings us to the next item on our agenda today, which is petition number 22-06, a petition submitted by the City of Mishawaka through its Board of Public Works and Safety and Cali Partnerships requesting to rezone 3 located between Front Street and First Street from I-1 Light Industrial District to I-2 Heavy Industrial District to C3 City Center Commercial District. Hello.
Mr. President, members of the commission, Ken Prince, wearing my President of the Board of Public Works and Safety hat. So essentially, we have 3 parcels that are currently vacant. The city acquired the parcels on the west side of Hill Street for the widening of Hill Street, and we currently have a development agreement with a developer to build apartments on the east side. And looking at the zoning of the property, these are remnants from the former Uniroyal days. 2 of these were parking lots essentially for Uniroyal. And then with the housing being non-conforming, just being a permitted use at the time that it was constructed as industrial. At this point in time, we're just looking to rezone it C3 City Center to match the surrounding zoning, which is required for the apartment site, but really is just to allow for the future redevelopment of, once we widen Hill Street, there will be remnants of the parcels on the west side of the road that would be available for redevelopment. It just cleans up the zoning so we can do it all at one time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Prince on this petition? None. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room or online wishing to speak in favor of petition 22-06? Hearing none, is there anybody online or in person to speak against petition 22-06? Hearing none, that closes the public hearing. Any other questions, comments, or discussions? Then I will take a motion on 22-06.
Mr. President, I'd like to put my wholehearted support behind petition number 2206 as presented by the petitioner.
Second.
Chief, Sam, thank you. We have a first and second. Could you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose? Yes. Murray Wynn?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes.
Dale Freeman?
Yes.
Kathleen White-Gadich?
Yes.
And petition 22-06 passes unanimously. That brings us onward to petition 22-07, a petition submitted by Balaji Hospitality Group LLC and Smita V. Patel requesting to rezone 2754 Lincoln Way East from C1 General Commercial District and C7 Automobile Oriented Restaurant Commercial District to R3 Multifamily Residential District. Hi.
Steve Ruby, Admarsh Consulting, 315 West Jefferson, City South Bend. So petitioner seeking to rezone from the C1, C7 designations to the R3 to allow for residential apartment building to be developed. This is currently the old Mishawaka Hotel. They're looking to put some investment into the building, as well as add potentially a second phase new building to allow for apartment use. This apartment use would require that R3 zoning to change for that application. Along with this, there'll be improved landscape, improvements, little trail application, fire pits, other amenities associated to residential use. It sits adjacent to the Dunkin' Donuts, which is a perk, I guess, for the residents. But along with that, there's improvements currently going on with the Dunkin' Donuts facility, as well as lane improvements on Lincoln Way to help with traffic flow into the site, and that's currently taking place with the construction of Dunkin' Donuts. So access into and out of would be improved significantly, as well as give a much-needed facelift to the hotel facility.
Mr. Ruby, can you elaborate a little bit more on the legacy building and some of the renovations that are going to happen to it and the investments that's going to be taken to revive that?
Yeah, they're looking to put in at a minimum 60 single unit apartments. There's also some potential double unit apartments there, some suites, so to speak. With this improvements. Along with that, some other amenity spaces, gym features, some other gathering spaces for residents to use, similar to a lot of your apartment building complexes that are built today. As far as the dollar investment, I'm gonna defer a little bit to Mr. Pericini here in a moment. He will fill in some of the details with regards to it, but significant investment in the hotel building itself, upwards of 1.2 to 1.5, I believe. Million with that improvement. So significant facelift from what's there currently, a nice facade treatment to really dress it up. And there's a few images here. I'll leaf through them. definitely a change of the look tremendously.
Is the construction of the new building going to happen at the same time, or is that a later phase, or?
Be probably a later phase, see how the first piece goes with this, but yes, it would be happening at a second, later part in time.
Okay, other questions for Mr. Ruby?
I have one. Steve, any of the concerns from the neighbors? I know there's the ditch that runs through there or whatever, and there's been some previous questions concerning runoff flows from the properties on there or whatever in terms of going into the ditch there. Have those been addressed? I mean,
I've not heard any concerns from the neighbors to my knowledge. You know, certainly we'd be addressing any stormwater issues on the site that's associated to the city requirements.
Okay.
That would be beneficial to the site. Obviously, there is a buffer along the ditch there. So we're trying to make that a nice amenity space, a nice green space for the residents as well. And that allows us to connect to the river, and I think that's the appeal here, is the site has adjacencies to the river. So there's always a nice attraction to those areas.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruby. Is there anybody else in the room wishing to speak in favor of petition 22-07? Hello.
Howdy. John Piercini, Caldwell Banker Commercial, 633 Windy Cove Drive, Mishawaka. I did have copies of those for all of you. This gives you the renderings of the facility. I just thought, I know we're doing the rezone, just want to give a little background, which I thought was important. This is going to be developed by the Barak Group, who's done a lot of development in the city. The first building is the current building right now. That's going to be probably $1.2 million, looking at $1.5 million in improvements. Everything's going to be pretty much gutted out of it, and some 1 and 2 bedrooms, maybe 3, but that's looked at more in the new building. We're going to do it in phases to get this thing started and get it, you know, starting to produce tenancy and get, I think it's about 60, we're talking about 103 units total, 106 units. As you can see, one of the big things that started this project, working with the staff, Ken and the staff, and Councilman Hazen, trying to kind of work through, because this thing has had a lot of issues over the years and it's pretty run down. So I think it's a strong commitment on Mr. Davison that he's taken on this. It's going to be a tough project, but as you can see by the renderings, it's really going to improve things. I think the other thing that's not, you know, the C1 and C zoning, it's kind of a down zoning. And what we're finding now is these rooftops and residential, as you see downtown and some of the down in South Bend and Mishawaka, like this area, the east end, which when I moved out the south side, moved on this end for the last 30 years, you see the retail kind of come and go a little bit. It's not, you know, we're starting to see it now pick up. And when you add those kind of rooftops, or I call it rooftops, but, you know, residents, it's going to feed some of that growth in there too. You know, the Dunkin' Donuts come, Wendy's is coming. And it's been a long time developing there. So, and as Steve said, when we did the Dunkin' Donuts, heck, I was excited the other day to see the new sidewalk in, you know, run down the street. But all those improvements are happening on the access and the stacking, the turn left in, because it is a tough, it's not an easy site to get in and out from years ago, but a lot of things in working with Chris and the staff and trying to make this thing as feasible as possible and easy to get in and out, which is just, there's only so much we can do, so. But, you know, and then it's never used the amenity of the river. And Dale, you had talked about drainage. Well, it's actually sheet drains into the river, the back half from the old day. If you go back there, it kind of drains, which all that'll be obviously changed, you know. So, and he's done studies, the Alta, it's a little bit of a, you know, floodplain in the back corner. So we're, you know, working around making sure elevations are right. So he's already invested some money in this thing to make the site right. But anyway. If you got any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions for Mr. Pericini? Sam?
Does the developer have a history in this area, or just a history with?
Yeah, no, it's Barak Group. Yeah,
that's Barak.
He's done a lot of homes and a lot of development, owns a lot of property. He's done a lot of development.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room or online wishing to speak in favor of petition 22-07? Hearing none, is there anybody in the chamber room or online wishing to speak against petition 22-07? Going once. Okay, well then that closes our public hearing. Any other questions from our city planner? Any concerns?
None.
What are we thinking? Everybody's good? Then I'll take a motion on 22-07.
I make a motion that we approve petition 22-7.
Woody?
Second.
Kathy? Thank you. Carrie, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose?
Yes.
Murray Wynn?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes.
Dale Freeman?
Yes.
Kathleen White Gadich?
Yes.
And petition 22-07 passes unanimously. Brings us to the next item on the agenda, design review number 22-09. I believe we have somebody online for this one as well. A request submitted by SCM 10X Mishawaka I LLC seeking approval of a design review waiver from the Mishawaka Design Review Ordinance Section 105-76 Architectural Materials at 5126 North Main Street. This was continued from the May 10th meeting. Is there somebody online to present this design review?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Name and address, please, and then you can tell us what you want to do here.
Yeah. My name is Nick Otto, N-I-C-K.
One more time.
Nick Otto, N-I-C-K, last name O-T-T-O. Address 6201 Campus Circle Drive East, Irving, Texas. What we have here today, what we're presenting and what we're requesting is a prototypical Saltgrass Steakhouse restaurant. And essentially, the building materials that are allowed by the Design Review Board and the Planning Commission for the rear of the building exceed the 1/3 limit or the 33% limit allowed. Our request here is simply to allow for the accepting the increase of that value, considering the fact that it's at the rear of the building and it's only slightly over the allowed amount. I think it's at 44% is the number. The bottom elevation that you're looking at there is the elevation in question. And the material is the hardy siding.
Thank you for that presentation. Is there any questions for Mr. Ojo? I probably butchered your last name. What was your last name again?
Not a problem. Otto, O-T-T-O.
Ago. Okay.
Otto.
Any questions? No questions.
Woody has one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Woody.
Okay. I like your restaurant that you're proposing and that, but I have a concern about the materials you're using and the amount of the material you're using that is really not approved materials. Can you go over a little bit of that, why you're putting such a large amount of non-approved materials into the facility?
Yes, sir. The materials that we're using, the design of the restaurant that we have here is a prototypical design, and the materials are part of the branding of the Saltgrass restaurant. I guess to answer your question as to why, that is how the design was created for all other restaurants throughout, the Saltgrass Steakhouse designs. Specifically here in Mishawaka is just the request for the rear elevation that's exceeding that amount. The other sides of the building, the entry elevation and the two sides of the elevation are far under the required or allowed amount of those materials. It's simply the rear elevation, and that back there is the trash enclosure and maintenance room for that building. It's simply just that one elevation, and it's facing away from the main street and the fairway there.
My concern is the amount of stucco that you're using This type of
The amount-
weather up here is not conducive to that type of material.
I'm sorry, so those materials are also under the allowed amount of approved materials for City of Mishawaka's
The
design.
type of weather with the snow and the rain and the cold and everything, stucco is not a good product to be using up here. It's more of a type of material that's used in the southern part of the country.
Understood. Again, those materials are part of the, I guess, under the allowed amount of those materials. And those weren't necessarily in question at this point. The one side was just the material that was over the allowed limits, which was the hardy backing at the side, or at the rear of the building.
Woody, did that answer your question sufficiently?
Well, not really.
Okay. You need any-
I can go
I
further
have a
if-
problem
if
with the
you'd like.
stucco. I mean, if you look around in this community, do you see stucco? No, because there's a reason why you don't use stucco.
Okay, is there any other questions for Mr. Otto? Hearing none, we will go to, is there anybody else in the room or online wishing to speak in favor of Design Review 22-09? Anybody in the room or online wishing to speak against Design Review 22-09? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up for any further discussions or clarifications on any of this.
No additional comment.
Then I will take a motion on Design Review 22-09.
I motion to approve design review 22-09.
Motion to approve, Kathy. Second?
Second.
Second. Chief? Carrie, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose?
Yes.
Murray Wynn?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
No.
Sam Kersey?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes.
Dale Freeman?
Yes.
Kathleen Wentworth?
Yes.
And that passes 6-1. And that is our last item on the agenda. That brings us to old business, Mr. Spear.
None.
New business?
None at this time.
Privilege of the floor. Anybody have any comments on things outside of the agenda items? Hearing none, then we are adjourned. Thank you all.